Okay, perfect. I will start off the webinar. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today at PresentPal. My name is Amer Latif. I'm the VP of Sales at PresentPal. I'm also joined by my colleague, Ben Scott, who's supporting me for any questions you may have on the chat box. There will be some time at the end for questions too, so if you do have any questions, please do ask us at that point. The topic of today's product demo really is how you can use PresentPal to support individuals with ASD. And if you've followed our themes before, you would have seen that we've talked about how you can use PresentPal if you have dyslexia, or how you can use PresentPal whether you're presenting remotely or face-to-face. So I definitely do recommend there will be a place where you can access some of our older product demos, but I definitely recommend if you haven't had a chance to look at those, do join us at our live meetings, because that's a great opportunity for you to actually ask us questions about previous product demos, or maybe just pick our brain about some other features that you're curious about. So I thought what would be useful is if we talk about a little on how we got started, our journey at PresentPal. Some of you may have heard this before when we talked in our previous product demos. So our journey starts off with our founder, Chris, who when he was going to university, found that in some of his courses, large portion of his grading was being based on his presentations. Now, Chris was diagnosed with dyslexia at the age of 13. What this led to is obviously Chris utilizing his go-to, which was flashcards. And what Chris found from that was that he's finding it very difficult actually to utilize these flashcards and deliver his presentations confidently and to the liking that he wanted to do. He found it difficult to follow the flashcards and possibly even to read, which led to Chris kind of then going to disability support and saying, okay, I need some help. What tools are there that you can give me to help with my communication skills or my presentation? Unfortunately, what Chris found out was that there was hardly any, next to no help available. So much so that what was being suggested to Chris was that you can actually skip the presentation altogether. You can have some more time. So these were not inclusive options that were being presented to Chris. So, which kind of delivered this or ignited this passion within Chris to develop something that was effective. As we all know, oral communication is like one of the #1 skills employers are looking for. And it's one of the biggest sources of anxiety for not just people with disabilities, but able-bodied people too. So what I really wanted to look at also was some of the communication challenges today in terms of what people are presented with. Now, one of the clear ones that you heard me just talk about was the linear thinking. For example, if you're using flashcards, why are you using them? Because you want to continuously move from one point of thought to the next, and you don't want to know what's coming up next. You want to also assist it in terms of helping you utilize your working memory, trying to recall information. But all these elements are building up that stress and anxiety piece. The other thing that's building this up is the visual stress of presenting to an audience that you do not know at a lot of times. Maybe your peers, maybe your managers, maybe your administrators. And the other interesting thing, which I talked about in my last product demo, was the non-visual stress of if you're doing this via webinar, like I'm doing so today. There's a loss of control that you are presented here. Essentially what happens is you do not get those visual reassurances. And all of this combined in with the cognitive overload that we have really adds to the anxiety element. Now, with regards to ASD, the other element in terms of communication challenges are possibly the behavior and social cues too. So, and a thing that was very interesting, Ben, my colleague, just shared with me was actually that 1 in 100 people actually are on the autistic spectrum. Now, everyone with ASD is different. So no two people are experiencing the same challenges. This is very, very interesting in terms of developing a tool that applies to everyone, that is customizable, that makes sense for me, and that makes sense, let's say if Ben is using it. Now, 50% of the people with ASD also have some form of social anxiety too. So as we look to develop the solution, some of the features that you'll see that I'll talk about today really will show how we look to address those challenges. So we created this tool, PresentPal, which essentially you can download onto your smartphones or your iPads. It works on both Android and iOS devices. And as you can see, the color palettes in the background, I'll talk about that later on. You can customize that. So I'll touch on that part later on too. So one of the things that we wanted to do is, and I talked about this before, was really preserving that whole linear thinking in terms of how you can move on from one thought to the next. So you've got, you're anticipating exactly what's coming up next. You're able to stay on focus in terms of what you're currently talking about. Everything's in a step-by-step plan. You're able to add your notes in and create these visual flashcards just to your liking, and maybe add in 3 to 5 bullet points for each slide. The idea behind this is essentially we're supporting this verbalization of for your thought and your ideas, all via your visual flashcards, your virtual flashcards here. So as you can see in this animation, slide 1, those are the bullet points, and the person here is easily able to scroll back and forth between one thought to the next. So the other thing we looked at doing is saying, okay, how can we add more elements to this that allow for more information to be added on that, if required, is useful? So one of these is what we call our safety nets. Essentially, it's that icon that you see on the left of the bullet point, which is kind of looks like a quote bubble icon. What the person has been able to do is, next to each bullet point, they're able to add on this additional piece of information. Now, some people may just want to add in some more words, like you see here. Or what you can do, and this is something that I find very useful, is you can actually add in images too. Now, the images can be great in terms of something you want to describe, or possibly you want to put an image of something that calms your nerves. Maybe a picture of your kids, your pet, for example. But those are very useful elements for people who want to actually keep the confidence growing, but also be able to address the safety net as and when required. So once again, each one of those bullet points and the safety nets aligned with those appropriate slides. So here, this is aligning with slide number 2. So very, very useful in terms of what you're able to do here. One thing I wanted to touch on also, which I talked about earlier, was the personalization element. This is very powerful in the sense that you can customize it to suit your visual preferences. I'm not just talking color backgrounds here. So for example, my preference color background is light green. I find it a more calming color for me, so I utilize that when I'm using my visual flashcards. But taking it a little step further, you've got your fonts that you want. So you've got Open Dyslexia font, Open Sans, whatever your preference is in terms of reading, so that it's easier for you to read and you are more in control. You've also got the timer. You can have it turned on or off. And essentially the timer is useful because it allows you to, if you do want to practice, you can see how long you're taking on each slide. So if you do have a limited time in terms of your presentation, it allows you to practice your slides and say, okay, I'm taking X amount on this much slide. Maybe I should slow it down, or maybe I can add more information because I've got more time left. So currently, for example, I've got 6 minutes left. And now my timer is telling me I need to actually pick up the pace to allow for more questions. But before I do that, I thought it'd be useful that I talk about a couple of the other features, right? So we have the text to speech, which is also very useful for a lot of our users, in the sense that if they want their words read out to them, they can utilize the audio cues. That's very good. The other element that's good here is, particularly for when we're talking about the ASD users, some of them may find it useful to actually utilize the speech to text aspect, which is very good in the sense that instead of now me having to type out my visual card notes, my bullet points, I can actually read it out and it'll automatically type it out for me. So quite a few different options for you to personalize here. My suggestion always is, when you get the app, have a play around with it. You'll probably do a few different tweaks and you'll come to a comfort zone that you feel like this is the way I want to use it. And we made it that you can make it your own. Essentially, we didn't want to make it very rigid. So now that's pretty much in terms of the content for today's. What I did want to talk about also is we do have a couple other product demos coming up. There's one coming up on November 6th, which is really talking about using speech to text, what I just touched upon, to create accessible notes with PresentPal. There's also one on November 10th, where we're talking about rehearsing your presentations with PresentPal. Both are at 10 a.m. Central Time. And as I mentioned before, we also have the live sessions. I strongly recommend to coming into these because it's a great opportunity for you guys to actually join us and ask us questions directly, get a live demo from us exactly at that point. We'll be able to show you maybe the app in a little bit more detail at that point because we have quite a lot of time allocated within that too. So great opportunity to come chat with us. One thing I would recommend, my colleague has put up on the chat box a link where you can access how you can actually get either a free trial for yourself, or if you're with an institution, let's say a K-12 or higher education, how you can actually get a pilot set up, a free pilot for a semester long at your institution. So definitely do fill in your details. We will get in touch with you. Or if you just want to have a license for yourself, if you're an occupational therapist, a parent, teacher, etc., fill out the form. We'll get in touch with you. We'll get your licenses over to you. Brilliant. And we will take some questions now. So if you have any, I'll leave our contact details up. So my email's up there too. So feel free to reach out to me via email too. As always, follow us on Facebook. We'd love that, and on Twitter. There is a question that came up in terms of rehearsal, something I've touched on before. It talked about how you can practice on rehearsal. So it's a brilliant question. Essentially, what we've done on the app is you are able to practice your presentation. So if you're like me, what you would probably do is before any presentation, be it webinar or be it face-to-face, you would probably take an X amount of time beforehand to present your contact. Some of us like to, talk out loud and maybe see how we sound like. Well, the tool's not doing that for you. You will be able to actually, as if in real time, utilize the presentation slides and the app. And while you're doing this, it's recording your audio. So this allows you to then flag up any content you want to go back to. So say if slide 2, you didn't like the way you sounded there, you can flag that and come back to it and retweak it and get it to the point where you're happy with it. So really useful. I definitely strongly suggest utilize the rehearsal mode. It'll improve your confidence as you're speaking. Brilliant. We'll take one more question. So this question is more to do with what other environments can you use. Is it just for presentations? Actually, brilliant question. We get this asked a lot. It's actually for a lot of other environments. It's a communication tool. You can utilize it, for example, in group discussions. So if there's a particular group discussions, and I know that the topic of the conversation is, let's say, about anatomy, right? What I can do is then utilize the app to rehearse what that topic could be, and actually even build in some bullet points as I'm going through that discussion. What are some of the points I want to get across in that group discussion? Other elements where this can be used and very useful for is, for example, interviews, be it job interviews or college interviews. You can actually build in preload your questions in and practice your answers in the rehearsal mode. And then you can listen back and say, on these anticipated questions that I may be asked at that interview, how confident did I sound? Am I happy with the way I delivered that answer, or should I try it again? Really, really good practice for that. So variety of applications, absolutely recommend that people use that to enhance your communication tool. I was thinking about the other day, it's also a great tool if you are practicing for, say, an exam, or looking to, you have an exam coming up. In the same sense, you can actually write up your potential exam questions and then practice out your answers, what you think the answers are, or maybe type out your answers in the bullet notes. And then obviously you're hiding, because then you can look to see if you got the correct answer. So in the safety net will be the correct answer. As you deliver the answer, you can look in the safety net, did I get the answer right? So something that I was discussing with our product team today, in terms of how this can be a great tool in terms of even just using in exams or a test environment. Brilliant. And I believe that covers us in terms of time. I hope that was useful for all of you guys. As I said before, please do click on the link if you need the trial. Get in touch with us if you need any information at all. I thank you for your time, and thank you, Ben, also for supporting us in the chat box. And I look forward to seeing you at our live sessions. All right, take care, everyone. Bye bye.